Okay, we can get started. I'm Sandy Scott. I guess we need to have someone make a move to start the meeting again.
I make a move to start the meeting.
Thank you. And a second, please. Someone second that?
I'll second it.
Great, thank you. I'm going to read the paragraph that I've been asked to read about because we're doing remote meetings. This open meeting of the Northborough Youth Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16th, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. The order allows the Northborough Youth Commission to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. So I'm going to ask everyone if we could just go around and identify ourselves. As I mentioned, I'm Sandy Scott. June, do you want to just say hello?
Sure.
Are you here?
Yes, I'm here, and my name is June David Forrest. I'm the Director of Family and Youth Services.
Great. Sherry, can you say hello?
Hi, I'm Sherry Clark, volunteer.
Great, thank you. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lipton. I'm a Northborough resident and parent, and I also am an employee of the Northborough Southborough Public Schools.
Gretchen?
Gretchen Bean, Northborough resident, member of the Youth Commission. I'm also employed by the Northborough Public Schools.
Kristen?
Hi, I am Kristen Wickstead. I'm the liaison to the Board of Selectmen.
Great. And Ayako?
Hi, I'm Ayako Rish. I'm the counselor at the Northborough Family and Youth Services.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody. Welcome. I'm Kristen, thanks for joining us. June, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So I wanted to mention first that the first item on the agenda is the date of the next meeting, which will be November 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Then the next agenda item is review of the minutes, which I have emailed to you, but not until this evening. Did you all receive it? Okay. Any suggested changes?
I had a question.
Mhm.
I was just curious why the last meeting was canceled, because I remember it was scheduled for Yom Kippur. And I pointed that out saying, I think that it should be rescheduled because it was a school holiday and that's like a major religious holiday for the Jewish community. And then I think the response was just, oh, the meeting's canceled. So I wasn't sure why, like what.
Because there wasn't a quorum.
But maybe there wasn't a quorum because you scheduled it on the Jewish holiday, you know?
Yeah, these meetings are held the third Thursday of the month, except for December and June, July. So they start up again in August.
I would just maybe pose it to the commission to reconsider if it's like falls on a holiday or some like major conflict, that maybe instead of skipping a month, that it's at least the schedule's looked at.
I think we've done that in the past on occasion when we were together, when we had, a previous meeting, and it may have been something that I don't know if we just didn't do that because we weren't together the previous month, or we we overlooked that. I can't remember discussing it at the previous meeting, but I think that is something we should probably consider.
Mhm.
I just think it feels more inclusive to like all members of the community, you know, when it's
Yeah.
not like on a holiday, like, you know.
Yep. Yep.
So shall we vote on the minutes?
Okay. Do I need to ask for a vote? Is that how we do it, June? I can't remember.
Yes.
Okay, all those who approve the minutes, say aye, or how do we do this remote? I can't, I'm not entirely
Well,
sure. I apologize.
I think I can unmute people. Oops.
Can everyone unmute themselves?
Yeah, they can.
Okay, if we could all unmute.
Bottom
And,
left hand of the screen.
Yep.
The
Okay.
minutes look fine to me. I approve the minutes.
I
Okay,
second that.
approve also, yeah,
I also approve.
marvelous. Okay, I think we're all set. We have a quorum.
So it's been a while since I've seen you all. And I thank Ayako for covering the meetings I couldn't attend. Okay, so I'm admitting someone, and it might be Joan because she might be calling in. Is that you, Joan?
Yes, it is. Hi, June.
Okay, hi.
Hi,
Nice to
Joan.
hear from you.
Thank you. You as well.
So what I was going to go over is the director's report. And as you all know, in terms of the COVID policies, for a little while, there started to be an uptick in cases. And so the town hall changed its policies to revert back to what we used to do, which is if any staff are going into the hallway or another department, we all wear masks now. Even within our department, we do that, and or we keep a distance from each other. When we're in our own office, we don't have to wear it unless we choose to. I think recently the numbers have gone down. I haven't been here for 2 weeks, but I'm pretty sure that's what's happened. And there's going to be the health department. Kristen Black is going to set up another clinic for the booster shot. So this one's going to be the Moderna, and it may be the Johnson & Johnson. So look for that information on our website, because as she gets approval, that'll be an option.
Are you able to participate in the pool testing through the high school?
I didn't, but I know a lot of staff in the office did.
I think you are eligible to if you choose.
Yes, definitely, which is really nice. Have they started it again, Jen?
It has started. I think it's been extremely successful. Mary Ellen Duggan is sort of the one spearheading it for the school district. And I know Gretchen can speak to it at Melican, but I know it's really worked really well to kind of identify cases early and contact trace. And then the test and stay program allows kids who were close contacts at school to test every morning. And as long as they're testing negative and asymptomatic, they can then still stay in school. So it saved something like 1,000 school day absences through that program. So that's a really good thing.
Definitely.
Gretchen, do you have the same experience from Melican?
Same, yes.
So a couple personnel updates. So unfortunately, Ayako's going to be leaving us. She's going to be starting a private practice, which will accommodate her family schedule. So it will be a big loss for us. She's been, her biggest skills are her clinical work with families and children, and her commitment to case management, which not all clinicians commit to. She's helped families in an incredible way. I think of the family we spoke to you all about, where the dad, where one of the parents is very ill and the other one's been taking everything on. And she did not leave one stone unturned in terms of finding help for this family. So she'll be missed. However,
Yes, we're sorry. We're sorry to lose you, Ayako. That's,
yeah.
good luck and best of wishes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure,
So
and we will miss a lot.
So the good news is that she's willing to stay on, because Doreen, our office assistant, is going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. So it would have been just me, which I've done before, but it's not a lot of fun. So Ayako is going to stay on a couple days a week, which will really help.
Oh, that's
That's
great.
nice. Thank you.
One of the things that we are seeing a big increase in is the number of families who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And it's due to, that horrific fire that happened in Northborough. A couple houses have been condemned, so the residents have to find housing. We've also, a couple residents are getting evicted. So landlords are starting to take them to court. So we've got about 8 families that we're working with that are in that situation. The problem is, a lot of times, we have resources we can refer them to and get them on wait lists for housing. 2 things exist though. As you know, the wait lists are very long. They're, however, prioritizing people who've been condemned, the building's been condemned, or a natural disaster like fire. What I find with a lot of residents is that they tend to wait till the last minute. And so if they get in touch with us earlier and they're getting evicted, we will tell them to first go to legal services, because they will help to slow down the process. It's a free service for people who are eligible. Most of the people we work with are. So when people don't call us ahead of time or follow through, that's when it really becomes problematic, because our ability to help them gets diminished. Because, like I said, there's wait lists for housing. There is like years and years of wait lists, but there's more housing resources now. And we were fortunate that Central Mass Housing Alliance, a connection we have there, called us ahead of time and said there's going to be 60 vouchers in the area. She'll let us know when they're available. So we want to refer people to that who would be eligible. One of our residents just missed the cutoff in terms of the financial. And when I say just miss, it's like $300 over. But, the government has strict guidelines and, they stick to the numbers. So it's a challenge. And I really dread when we get families in need of that, because the system is not readily available. So, it's really hard to see families go through that. The other thing that happened is the hotels, 2 motels were shut down. So that left a slew of families homeless. What's interesting though, in one motel, many of the people lived there long-term. And so they were more resourceful and found a place to go until the motel opened up, back up. Let's go.
June, what is the wait list now in Northborough if somebody is looking for housing in
Yeah.
Northborough?
Well, when I called on behalf of some of these families, one family needed a 2-bedroom, and Lynn told me those are not easy to come by. So it depends on the situation and what kind of housing people need. That's a good question.
Yeah.
She's the first one that I contact to see if there's availability.
Okay. It's something I had thought, like, as you're mentioning it, I was curious what our wait is in Northborough right now. And if you're not on that wait, I'm curious what kind of the median rental cost is in Northborough for somebody trying to.
Yes, and I'll tell you, a lot of these families really want to stay in Northborough, a lot of times because their kids are in the school. The problem is they can't afford these, right? I mean, some of the rentals, someone could own a home, the cost of the rentals. Even Avalon Arbor, they have some subsidized housing, but one person with a low income still pays $1,200 a month. So, and she's a single person.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll keep plugging along and doing what we can, but it really is helpful when the families consistently, and there are many that consistently stay in contact with us. So Interface is taking a lot of the counseling cases, but we've got some calls from the schools where sometimes, and they're very timely in making referrals, but sometimes families can't afford the copay, or, there's a crisis with the student in the school. And the good news is at least one school is letting us go there to see the students, which makes a huge difference, because what I found is that, adults are okay on Zoom. Some want to talk on the phone, but kids do not like it. And when things were getting better, I started doing a home visit with one student, and it was so much more effective than, on Zoom. So I'm hoping, I don't know, Gretchen, I do know that they're allowing me to come in to see students in the middle school. I don't know at the high school what's happening there.
Well,
Jen,
Jennifer, you're muted.
What was that?
I actually have a new position for the school, so I'm now like in a district-wide administrative role, so I can actually work on that and, figure out a way. I can talk to Mary Ellen Duggan and figure out a way, if there's a need and you have availability, because I know in the schools, they're hearing from parents that the interface is not giving them referrals that are coming through, or they're still having to wait for months and months and months. So that's what we're hearing from parents.
Okay.
And we're also hearing that some parents can't afford the co-pays.
Right.
So, that's real as well. So if you all could start coming into the schools, like June, I will work on that with you.
Great. And you know what?
Because I think if whatever availability you have, I think there's a need at the schools. So that's
Yes. So when I've heard that about Interface, which I haven't heard in a while, if you can have those families call me, I will troubleshoot with Interface They always respond when that happens. So that's disheartening to hear. But definitely either refer them, have them call me, or you can even call Tanya. Tanya Snyder is the contact person who's been really responsive.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I think providers are just full, right? I mean, the statistics are really sobering about how much need there is with mental health, and or Gretchen can speak to that at the middle school. Like, there's such a need and there aren't enough providers. So I think there's going to be a wait. So
Right.
however
Right.
we can connect people with, and if you guys can come into the schools, like we can make that happen.
And I know that Interface had to shut down, totally shut down for a week, maybe a week and a half, because they were bombarded with cases after COVID. So they had to regroup and come up with other resources. So this pandemic has really impacted, you read all about the increase in anxiety and depression. It has tripled since the pandemic. And as you say, there's not a lot of available clinicians. There wasn't enough before the pandemic. So yeah, it's a real problem. So the other thing in terms of the homeless families is we're also getting a lot of referrals for case management services, people needing help paying their electric bill, and Helping Hands will help pay up to like $400 or $500 for an electric bill. But they'll only do it once for families, but still it's really helped a lot of families who are behind and have been shut off, which usually starting in, I think, November, it's illegal to shut them off, but this happened before. So, any questions about our services right now, or?
I mean, are you hiring to fill the Ayoko's position? Is
Yeah.
what's that process?
Becca Meekins is fantastic. She's the she's been here a year, but this is her skills, and she gets the postings out right away. Across Massachusetts, it's been really hard to recruit municipal positions. And this is especially hard because this position is part-time, 19 hours with no benefits. So, Ayako and a couple other clinicians left to go into private practice, which is very lucrative right now. So, and I've requested a full-time person, kind of year after year, but that hasn't happened, which is unfortunate because there's definitely a need. And I think we're one of the few programs that have 2 part-timers. So Doreen, the office assistant, is also 19 hours, but sometimes not getting the benefits is okay. So she's a retired teacher who retired recently from the school, and it was a dramatic change for her from going to work into not working. So she wanted to find something part-time. So, she has the insurance on her own. And so this is a good fit. So we were lucky to find her.
So June, what can we do to help facilitate you potentially getting a second full-time person? Because this is something that I think is so important in this town. I look at Shrewsbury and I realize they're a bigger town than us. But when you look at how many people they have employed in Shrewsbury Family and Youth, it seems to me we are at a severe deficit in Northborough of how many people we have working on all of this. And I can't imagine, from my days way back in social services, I cannot imagine for the couple of you in the office how many cases that means that you're each trying to deal with.
And I
So
think
how
that
can
Southborough-
we facilitate that? Like, how can we get more full-time people for you?
Yeah, so that's a really good
Is that for,
question.
maybe Kristen can answer that too, because Southborough Youth and Family has like 3 full-time people
Oh,
and
yeah.
interns and smaller town.
So that's why I'm here, to listen to you guys talk about these things that I am the liaison to talk to. I guess, like, I'm still new too, right? I just kind of like
Yeah,
in May,
yeah.
so I'm still figuring a lot of these things out, but, and I know Becca is the person who does the hiring, but I'm pretty sure John is the one who decides whether
Right.
people
He
are
does the
full-time, part-time,
budgets.
and how many staff we have, because
Mhm.
he's also doing the budget.
Right.
But
And I'll
Our-
tell you, probably
Sorry.
the last 10 years, I have put in requests, because we can put in a supplemental budget. In 1 year, I did, it's probably about 18-page justification for more staff. And, even John said it was very compelling. This was the year that we got Interface. And part of my worry was that some of the counseling, a lot of the counseling is being taken care of through that, but there's still so much more work to be done. And, I used to work really crazy hours. And my goal is to get it down to like 50 instead of like 60 and 70. And I did better. It was awful to start a wait list here, but I had to, we just had so many cases. I can send a copy of that report to people. I can make it available. I think I did send it to Youth Commission members who were here back then.
Can I ask a question though, June?
Mhm.
Because what I'm hearing from you is maybe the needs have changed a little, and it's maybe there's some like looking at the bigger picture of what the staffing needs really are, because as sad as we are to lose Ayako, like, does it make sense if a lot of the counseling is going through Interface and you need more like case management help? Like maybe the
Yes.
skill set of the person we hire maybe looks a little different, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a licensed,
Yeah.
mental health clinician.
Yes.
So I don't know, I just posed
Yeah.
that. to the
It's a
committee,
really
you know,
good point.
maybe that's somebody who is easier to hire right now. Maybe
Yeah.
it's that June, you really focus on the counseling, and then there's
Yeah.
somebody else to do more of the case management, like office
Mhm.
stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, that's a really good point. In that report that I did, I surveyed several towns and put what their budget was and how much staff they have. We were, other than one town, we were absolutely at the bottom. And the one town that only had one full-time staff was, I think it was Falmouth, and it was a new program. But yeah, we're way out of whack with the other towns.
This is something I would love to be able to help, like in whatever capacity I can help with this. It's something I feel very strongly about. With my work over at Trinity, I've used Shrewsbury Family and Youth Services for a number of their different programs that they run. And it's always been something on my mind. Why do we not, why do we not have more people working with our youth? And this just is crazy to me. Like I know our town always speaks highly about our schooling, and it's why it draws in a lot of families, but not to have the support on the back end for the families that are in the town for mental health things and, these crises like the fire and homelessness. And it's crazy to me that we have one full-time person.
Yes,
So-
I agree. I'm not sure what the next step would be.
So I just want to say that, year after year, when June does her report and they're putting together a budget and, she's presented numbers, these are the caseloads, this is how many people we've had to wait list, this is how many families we've serviced, this is the increase, and so on and so forth. The numbers are there. I mean, we've, June has
absolutely.
really done a fabulous job every year of putting that together and presenting it and asking for additional staff. And it seems to me that one year we talked about, and I should remember, I don't, if we actually wrote a letter to John, and I think that was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago,
Yeah, we
trying
did.
to support the additional staffing. And as far as I know, this just falls on deaf ears, and I don't understand it. I mean, I think it's become clearer and clearer every year. The need has grown, and yes, maybe the what the need is in the office may be different, maybe with, more case management, or, and I would leave that up to you, June, but the requests for more support have been there again and again, and I don't understand. I mean, I know there were years when the budget was really tight. I don't honestly know what that looks like right now, but to me, it's crazy, and it's hard to fill those 19-hour maximum no benefits jobs right now. I mean, they can't even hire wait staff at restaurants.
Right.
So, my company's trying to hire someone, a 3-month contract position. Nobody wants that. They want a full-time with benefits and so on and so forth. So I think the market's really competitive, and sort of doing the cheap, well, we'll just give you a 19-hour slot. I understand that might look good from the budget side, but it's really hurt, the services.
Absolutely.
And, then the having to have waitlisted. I mean, you've been waitlisting now for a couple of years. It's just a commentary on the support's not there. But even presenting those numbers hasn't changed the narrative at all. I don't understand that.
And that
So
Go ahead.
does it
Budget-
need to
the
have
budget-
more of a public front then? Because I feel like the people I know in town would be supportive of this. Like I guess that's where I don't know where the disconnect is. Like, I think if you ask anybody, do we need more mental health services and things like that, you're going to have people tell you absolutely 100% we do. And I feel like when there's other, and I know this wouldn't even be close to that, but when there's other big ticket items for the budget, there seems to be a little bit of a public appeal for it, like whether it be new vehicles or new fire station, which is a whole different ball game. But there seems to be that, attracting the public to the fact, like, this is going to increase the budget. This is why. These are our needs.
Absolutely. And I will say that it took a year and a half for Ayako to be hired. And it took a year to hire Kate, who was prior to Doreen. So I mean, I see the need. I've written as much as I can. I presented as much information possible.
Can you send it to me? And
Sure.
whatever your most recent information is, especially if it's you have new needs. I'm not 100% sure what interface is, but I'm sort of figuring it out from context.
Sure.
And my dog's about to bark.
Oh,
But you gotta love the Zoom meeting and the whimpering creatures. So that would really help me if I am going to speak on your behalf, which I'm happy to do.
Yep.
And you're not the only department that's interested in that, but also there is, I mean, as far as I understand it, there is a possibility of using some of the money we're getting from other things for, that's one thing John is great at, is kind of finagling his ability to be able to use money for what he wants to use money for.
yeah.
So if it's possible, and if you get me the information, and like Sherry, like you said, like if this group had a little more, like I didn't know what the youth commission was. I had to read about you guys before, like when I got my list of what my liaison jobs were. So I think it would be great if you did have more of I don't know, Sherry, maybe that's because Sherry's really good at like outreach herself.
Yep.
Everybody in town that I know knows Sherry. So,
Good. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
no, it's good. It's good.
I just think
take it
I'm willing to have a voice on things I feel strongly about. And this is
Yeah.
something, it doesn't surprise me. You didn't know what youth commission is. I think these women are working too hard to have a social front because they've got caseloads a mile long.
Yeah. So if,
You know,
you know,
it
if
was the
there's
case.
things that we can do to support you and so other people understand what you are. So if it does come to town meeting, we want to increase the budget for, you know, whatever, or if I make a list of places, of departments that are looking for more staff. So, you know, whatever, however I am doing this,
Yeah.
it would be
Yeah.
good to have the information behind, but also for people to know what you do.
It's funny, there was always for a lot of years, there was this sense of we don't want to be too much in the spotlight because these guys are so overworked that if we put them in the spotlight, they're going to have, they're going to have twice the number of cases, which is, it's a crazy catch-22.
Yeah.
But that was really the, kind of the fine line, I think, that I've heard over the years that I've been on youth commission was we want people to know the service is here, but we don't want to put it on the front page of the Telegram or the town news because it would be overwhelmed.
Right.
And there's
And
not
that's-
enough staff to handle that. So there's that catch-22.
There's a balance, I know.
Yeah.
And at that point, we had 28 families on the wait list. So,
Wow.
and
And June, do you want to explain what interface is?
Sure. I have monthly meetings with other youth and family services departments. And they've all been seeing the same thing with the increase in mental health needs. And they had told me about Interface Referral Service, which is through William James College. We also take graduate interns from William James College, and they're phenomenal. So all the other departments that spoke about this, overall, they had a positive experience with them. So when I went to present my budget to John, which included an increase in at least Ayako's position, he had gotten that report that he said was very compelling. So I wanted to talk about the position first. And so then I told him about Interface. And, John's really good at balancing the budget. But by hiring them, by getting them on board, we pay like $16,000 a year to use their services. I was worried that the need for the counselor would not be seen as important. I also think, maybe inviting John to a meeting. When I was away the last time, the board, the youth commission members, I think approached or asked to talk to John, and then a couple members talked to some selectmen. And if there's a trigger for John, it's when he's not aware that that's going to happen. So I came back after being sick for 3 weeks, and my first email from John was not, I hope you're feeling better, but were you aware that youth commission members were talking to the select board? Which I think as a resident, you have a right to do that. You've put them in office. And so I think I'm telling you this because I want to go about it in a way that, I don't mind if people get angry at me, but get angry about stuff that is more logical to be angry about. So there's a hesitancy to to increase well, since I've been here, nothing's been added. So year after year, I do these reports. So I don't know the most delicate way to do that, because I think he does. Go ahead.
How many years have you been there that you haven't had an increase in your budget? Or an
Yeah,
increase in-
I've in November, I'll have been here 15 years.
Okay, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah, but I don't think I start asking for maybe 3 years into it when I got to know the program, what the needs were in the community.
Right. Well,
That's a
fair.
long time though, and that the need has only been increasing. It's clear if you look at the numbers year after year.
I also think, Kristen, your idea, CARES money, this seems like a very logical way that CARES money could be used.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
the connection between the heightened sense of anxiety and depression in kids and what that CARES money was intended for seems like a very, very logical connection to me.
Yeah, like it's
Yes.
kind of a no-brainer. Everybody keeps talking about, I don't know, I have a high school student who's very comfortable talking about, they were, at school, they talk about good mental health and it's really important. And it's not like it's wonderful. It's not like a stigmatized thing. And that's so new because I have two daughters
Yes.
who are just a little bit older.
Yes.
And for them, it was still a stigmatized thing. And for him, it's not. It's really,
Yeah, it's like being normalized now.
yeah.
You know,
And
which is
also, I
great.
think the pandemic really highlighted that, so many people had anxiety and depression that got
Yes.
worse during the pandemic, as you said. So it just made people talk about it more, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I have met, as I said, with other directors. They've utilized that money in phenomenal creative ways to help residents. When I talked to John about it, he was hesitant to commit to that right now because his priority is to put the money back in, I don't know if it's a general fund or because of the staffing issues, which is fine, but it's a lot of money. And, I
Well,
said,
he's been, that's been a message from him for a lot of years. And, maybe, he's your boss and I wouldn't begin to
Right.
tell you how to handle your boss, right? But, maybe as a commission, we ought to think about if there's a different approach that, because, we haven't seen a change.
right. And the needs have grown. They haven't diminished.
Yeah, I think he was talking at the meeting on Monday night. He was talking about how there's a policy of how things are done and a process. And I think you are the process. You are the committee that needs to advocate for the Youth Commission. That's why you're here.
Yes.
So that, so June, obviously, yeah, it's awkward for her. But
Yeah.
if you all get together and say, we as the Youth Commission and write him a letter and put in whatever information you have, whatever numbers you have.
So do we make motions? Like, can we agree to write a letter requesting a meeting with him or requesting like a discussion to open discussions about like our budget and our staffing? Like, would that be the next step, Kristen?
I think so. Yeah. Come to think of it, that is probably something you need to make a motion and vote on.
So I
So-
make that motion.
Okay.
I
I guess
second it.
and this is a question I've had for a long time, and I don't know if anybody here can answer it, but for all this time I've been sitting on the committee, we've had this conversation so many times. And I guess I've always wondered if I really don't understand the reasons why the funding has never come through. And I guess in my mind, I sort of wondered if maybe the thought is, well, we have these really robust student support teams in the schools, and whether those are enough to sort, again, I don't necessarily believe that. I'm just wondering if maybe that's the mindset that, you know, we fund these programs through the schools, so there isn't as much a need through the town. Again, I'm just asking if that's sort of what I've been wondering about. I didn't know if anybody has ever heard that, or if that's just me.
Can you say that part again? You don't know if anybody's heard what part of that?
I guess I just don't know if the reason why the answer, the response given to requests for more support financially for the youth commission is because we have these really robust student support teams in the
Oh,
building
okay.
in Northborough,
Yeah.
the school buildings. I don't know if like
Yeah.
the thought is,
Yeah.
well, we're going to fund it through the schools.
Yeah.
So again, not trying to take a side at all, but I'm just wondering if that's,
Yeah.
if that has been something you've heard.
Well, that might have been stated once, but what I always say is, you know, that team can't do family therapy. You know, in school, you don't do family therapy. So that's where we come in to help.
John, do you know what happened to the letter that we wrote a couple of years ago? I mean, did that?
Me?
Yeah. I
A
mean,
couple of you called, I think Becca was here, and a couple of you.
yeah, when it was
called.
Becca was here and we wrote a letter. And I remember, Joan, do you remember this?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was disconnected, I had to log back in, I didn't hear, you know, the last probably
I
10
made a
minutes.
motion to write a letter to him, ask for a conversation
yes.
about,
And
you know,
we did,
requesting additional budget.
that's right, and we did. And I think we referenced that years ago, not only did this department have, you know, a admin person, a full-time admin, but we shared it with NEDP. There was a director and an assistant director. So June has been working without assistant director ever since she got here.
Yeah.
But I don't know what came of the letter. I do know.
Yeah,
we
as far
wrote
as
it.
I know, we spent a lot of energy and I think a little bit of maybe more stress than was necessary trying to get that letter done. And then I never
We
heard
did.
another thing. It was like,
Right.
we
We
even,
finessed
did it
the
even?
letter. I'm
Can
sorry.
I
Sorry.
jump in? I know that we, so I think that's when June was out sick.
Yes.
And then I think that letter was sent to John and the selectmen. And then I
Yes.
think after that, nothing happened.
Yeah, because Ayaka
Yeah,
was.
that sounds right. And you know, that surprised me. Like, did we forget to send it? I mean, what happened?
Yeah.
But no, I was pretty sure that we followed through and nothing. I mean, not even a response to the individuals who signed the letter. So that just kind of floored me.
Yeah, me as well, but I think June just basically told us why.
Yeah.
Just now.
June what?
You just told us basically why. He was upset that, I guess we didn't present it to him instead of to him and the selectmen. You know, John wanted to be given a heads up beforehand. But I would like to reiterate what you said. We are all members of the town, and we have a right to go to our selectmen, whether we're
Yes.
on the youth committee or not.
You 100% do have a right. And I had a little bit of at the meeting, I made some comments that he took offense to. I think sometimes he sees it as everything should go through him, but he's only one
Yeah.
person and no one person can do everything. And also that is not the process. The process is you elect us and we work for you. I got an email the other day saying, you know, I don't know, it was about an issue, and the woman started in the beginning and she said, I am a resident of Northborough and I am your boss. And that is actually true, kind of, you know, like, you can, you have a lot to say about what we do. So you have every right to speak to the Board of Selectmen about issues that are important to you and that where you see failures in like a commission unable to reach, unable to get a response even from anyone. I'm really sorry that happened. And also where you see a need that's your job. That is the process that you are supposed to follow. So I think if you, I'm sure you don't really want to do all that work again. Maybe you can just reuse some of the
Yeah, I don't mind.
information you have. And if you want to send it to, I don't know if it's appropriate to send it to me first as your liaison, and I'll give you my 2 cents as a sort of almost like as an editor.
Mhm.
And then have you send it to the entire board and John, and also send it to Becca because it is also a hiring issue, right? It's a
Yep. Yep.
personnel issue, and I think that's her domain.
Mhm.
So I think that would be appropriate.
So
And then
Gretchen,
I
I
will
was
speak up for you
curious.
at the next board meeting in person or at the whatever board meeting is, if timing wise works, and cheer for you, and hopefully they would vote with me if I'm able to get it on the
Yep.
table, as it were. But as it's my first year, I could have
Yeah.
something wrong, but I can try.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's great.
I had a question for Gretchen because just so that I understand, when you're saying the teams, the robust teams, are you meaning the teachers at the schools, or are you meaning the mental health people at the different schools?
I was referring to the student support staff. Yeah.
Okay.
So counselors, adjustment counselors, behavior specialists, those kinds of things. I really could only speak to, the schools that I'm aware of. My son goes to Lincoln, Melican, I know,
Yeah.
and then the high school a little bit. I really was just purely saying that just to make sure that in the letter that we address that these are services that are needed beyond the school.
Yes.
I was just looking, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just asking because something, and this is just my weird, I couldn't go to town meeting last year, but the one before that, I'm always curious about the school budget. Because our town brags a lot about keeping an even budget. And so I'm always curious what happens with the actual school budget and if we're ever investing in our schools again. And what I noticed when I went 2 years ago is that those services had actually dropped in the budget. We had taken away a half a position in mental health services. And I don't know where behavioral services fall in there and things like that, but just something I had observed is that we were already decreasing in what seemed like a time when we should be increasing mental health services. We had taken away a half a position in our school district.
And actually that report I wrote was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a lot more I'm going to be able to include in that.
Yeah.
And my experience is much more anecdotal than data driven. So I think,
Yeah.
I could
That
be
can help.
totally, but I guess that has always sort of been in the back of my mind as for lack of a better word, excuse for why, the commission hasn't been, had a budget increase in a long time, and just something to consider. I also was going to say, Sandy, I know that I was a part of that letter. I know that I must have it somewhere here in my files. So maybe if we put our heads together, even maybe reach out to Becca Haberman, just to, I think that it finally came from either you or Becca.
I think Becca did. I don't have,
That's Becca.
don't believe I have it.
So it sounds like we should say very clearly in the letter, these are the areas that we're able to serve that is outside of the realm of the school district, and why, like family therapy, after school support, weekend support, like respite care for parents, family trainings, weekend school vacations. There's a big summer thing, camps. Like you could, come up with like a pretty long list, because I think that might be more important than including data from, many years ago. I think just the statistics now on mental health, that's like easy to come by, what's going on with the pandemic. And then those areas that I just listed, I feel like that alone, it's like, we don't want to give them an 18-page thing because honestly, nobody reads an 18-page report. Like a 2-page report might be more helpful if we just really hit our main points and what we think we could do with an increased budget. Like what's the need and what are we planning on doing with that?
Yeah, I think you don't want to mention the school district situation. I'm glad Gretchen brought it up so that you're ready if someone tries to counter with that. But the school district has its own budget, and their budget is set by the superintendent. And we don't have that much to do with that. You guys are part of the town budget. You should have your own, what you need, you should have. It shouldn't have anything to do with what's already happening at the school, especially since you already described lots of things that would need to happen outside the school day.
So
I think it was mentioned because I think in a way to support not funding additional people, they say, oh, we have counselors here in the school. And even though that is a totally different budget, I think many people, or people who don't want to support additional staff for family and youth services, they're saying that the need is already being taken care of when it really isn't, because it's different things. But I do think people say that.
So the political side of me wants to, I feel a need to talk to John about this, not the details, but just that this came up at the youth commission meeting and, you know, they may be reaching out to you or something.
Well, you know, I mean, I think that makes sense that you start out, you know, have a conversation with him, tell him about our concerns and our frustration that, you know, geez, we tried to reach out a few years ago and it just fell on deaf ears. And that, you know, there's this sort of pent up frustration and a real need in the town. And, you know, maybe that conversation, maybe you have that conversation with him first and then let's see where that goes.
Okay. Yep.
And I know like Jen, you know, I don't want to say let's not write the letter, but maybe we should wait and give June an opportunity to work it with John directly and pass on the message. You know, because I don't want to put you, June, sorry, I keep doing that. I don't want to put you in a position that you're uncomfortable with. That's the last thing I want to do.
Oh, no, I don't either, but I think we can do it at the same time. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
What did you say, Joan?
I said I don't want to put June in a bad position, and it probably is a very good strategy for her to give John a heads up that this is coming. But I think we can start the process at the same time, because no matter what John says, it still should be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
And,
too,
you know,
in this letter, we could include and then would like to be heard at one of the meetings rather than leaving it just open-ended. Like have them have to follow up and be heard at a meeting or ask questions at a public meeting where those things can be answered.
So when ideas have been shot down, you know, what helps me with John is I keep saying to him, John, this is my job to advocate for the department. So I don't want you to think I'm reticent to continue to do that.
No, absolutely not.
But June, I do think it would be a good idea, you know, in the you know, soon to kind of imagine like what would be, what kind of position could fill the need you have, immediate needs. You know, I think Jennifer's point was a good one around, you know, is it more case management? Is it more that kind of a thing? Just so that you know, we can sort of be specific in the request, because I think that that will be helpful too, just persuasive, I guess.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, again, I don't know what it's like to employ people, but you know, how much more money would it be to have one full-time person
Mhm.
as opposed to two 19-hour
Yeah,
jobs?
and the thing about Doreen's position, NEDP pays a big portion of it. So
Yeah.
the town isn't even paying for that.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Because
think it
she's,
would make a huge difference if we could even have one full-time. Social workers, they do the clinical, but they also strongly believe in advocating and hooking up resources. So I don't think it would hurt to have that. We can advertise it as both, but I think it would be good to have another clinician see it here when I go these.
That sounds about right. I'm sorry, this is Joan again. I was disconnected when I was asking about the CARES money. I know somebody might have answered, but with that funding, I'm assuming we did get some as a town. I thought that money had to be identified for certain projects and programs. I didn't think it could be just put into the general fund. Am I correct?
Well, I don't know the wording that John used, because Joan, what I had said is I meet with other youth and family services directors, and they have been using this money in incredible creative ways. And
Yeah.
I brought it up at a staff meeting, and you know, the priority, John said the priority is to put the money back in terms of any funding, any personnel losses, or he might have said the general fund, but I'm not sure. But I asked several times about the social service piece. And one town that did a lot, it was Holliston. It was 0.02% of the CARES fund. And the town of Northborough got $4 million. So, and I think,
4 million, and we
Yeah,
can't
this-
hire a person. You
Yeah.
lost a person. He forgets that because it was, what, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
But you are down a person.
Mhm. Yeah, so,
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
don't
that's,
know. That's a whole other side of everything. Maybe we could even put in the letter, you know, once we massage John's ego, sorry, we could put in, there is $4 million that we would like some of.
yeah,
So the 4 million, I think you might be referring to the ARPA money. I was just looking, the CARES money and the ARPA money aren't in the same umbrella. And I know that the ARPA money is around more than $4 million. And there's been people talking about that a lot. I was just thinking, like, I really need to find out about the CARES money, because I don't know how much we got, or if we know how much we got. I know there's a certain time limit. We have to spend it in a certain time, and there
Yes.
are
Yeah.
very strict rules about how to spend it. And
Yes.
so
That's
maybe,
what I thought.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
June,
and-
that would be something I would be interested in too,
Mhm.
to know how these other towns spent the money, if that's something information you could give me really quick, or you could even just tell me what to Google and I can look it up.
Yeah, so
but
the
yeah.
ARPA, it is the ARPA funds that will help.
CARES
pay
under
for
ARPA?
human services. Yes.
Okay. So CARES is part of the ARPA money?
Well,
Oh,
I'm
it is.
not quite
Okay.
sure, but I know that, I think it's still from the federal government, but to different programs. But I know that we just got an email from the finance director that the deadline is approaching. So please get information in. Now, Interface was paid for in other towns through this money, but Jason, who's the finance director, said, is it A&R? Is it the state treasury or the ones that approve these things? Jason said every time he asked them, they said it's not approved, but many other towns have gotten reimbursed for it, so.
That's interesting. Very interesting. I wonder if it's the
So-
way it's posed. Because, you know, there is a deadline. We need to get it going. Even if we get, I'm always a supporter of programs through Family Youth Services, which we haven't been able to do because of lack of staff, but programs then spreads the word indirectly on what we do, you do, and it also covers all different areas of the populace in Northborough.
Yes, and we've wanted to do community
I know.
programs, but we just can't. We just don't have the staff.
No, I know that. So I don't know. Do you think Jason needs help in writing up what you can do? I mean, what you could do if you had, like, you know, if you could even get a consultant to, you know, run a couple of programs. It would give us indirect advertising as well.
Yeah, the problem is when I asked John, when I told John in a staff meeting about all these other human service programs that are being run by other town departments, he was reluctant to commit to that and was saying, yeah. So, I mean, I can ask again. I can pull together I did talk about one town came up with, and it took a lot of work, but we could just borrow from them. Took some of the money and put it aside for rental arrears and mortgages, and which was fantastic. There's a real need for that.
See, what we don't want to do is lose the support that is being offered from the federal government.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I think we have a tone on what the gating point is here. So somehow we have to figure out a workaround.
Mhm. Yeah.
I also think it's just logistical too. Like, to lose somebody like Ayako should be a wake-up call that trying to hold on to part-time people in this position is just going to create turnover for families.
Right. Right.
Because that's just not sustainable. Part-time with no benefits is just not a sustainable position
No.
for most people.
Well, I stayed for 6 years.
Wow, you're a
You're
trooper.
special. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
I think that just that too, to include in the law, like, that's just not logical to me.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. Well, Becca's done a phenomenal job with hiring, but before this, all 3 clinicians were found by me. So through word of mouth. And I'm happy to do that, but that was the only route that was being taken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
like you're
real-
doing another job. You don't, you know.
Right.
it's-
Right.
Yeah.
Which I
They need
don't,
to
you know,
support that.
if you hear of people that are looking for jobs and they're good and they're recommended, I mean, I'm always in favor of that.
Oh,
But that-
certainly, but you put on as a job.
What's that, Joan?
Oh, certainly, you know, word of mouth is always good, but you can't add them on to, you know, something else will have to give if you start being a recruiter.
Right.
Exactly. It's just another job to do.
Right.
So what are the next steps? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good question. I think
Well,
the first thing is,
That
Oh, I
I
was
talked to
going to say-
John.
yeah, I would say
Mhm.
that would be the first. Yeah. And then I think I'm going to look and see if I have that letter in my files. And if I do, I'll send it off to June, and then you can send it to everybody else.
Mhm.
I think then would be to start drafting the letter, but at
Mhm.
the same time, we have to figure out steps to get to be able to access these federal funds before they go away.
Yes. Joan, this is off topic, but we were talking earlier about the dates of the youth commission meetings. I know they've always been like the third Thursday
Okay.
of the
Yeah.
month, but is that written in stone? So, I mean, is that,
I don't know if that's in the, that might be written or in the, oh, what is
Bylaw?
that called?
is it the
Yeah,
bylaw?
it might be, it
June,
might be
I
in the
thought
bylaw.
I thought that we had, and I just may be misremembering, but my recollection is that on occasion, we have moved a meeting to a different night
Week.
because, a different
Oh, yeah.
week, because
yes,
of
we get- right.
holidays or, you know, school
Yeah.
events or whatever.
Yeah, because Jen
Yeah.
Lipton was saying they're falling on significant holidays,
Yeah.
or I wonder if we looked ahead, say for the upcoming year, and looked at the specific dates, and if there's a conflict, maybe move it to a different week. Is that possible?
Oh, yes, we've done that many
Okay.
times.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we just have to, make sure and what you always do, is you make public notice of it,
Mhm.
so the
right.
Yeah.
check.
Yep.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I really appreciate all of your support, and it's not necessarily the support for me, but support for the residents for this dire need in the community.
No, that is for sure, I know. So, what should we do for next steps for accessing the federal funds?
I'm not sure because I've already asked John about it. Now, Jason did say that there's going to be some time, to lay out these programs, but at the same meeting, John was very reluctant. He kept saying it's a process, and he
Yeah.
was reluctant to say, when it would get to the point that there may be some money utilized for human services.
I can email him and just ask him about the CARES money. I'll tell him I came to the meeting, and I can just ask something general like, has all the CARES money been spent? And is it possible that the youth commission or what are you called? The youth?
Yeah, the youth commission.
Okay. Some are committee, some are commission, some are
Yeah, I
department.
know it.
So are there funds that the youth commission could be eligible for? I don't know. I'll work on my wording so he
That'd be
doesn't know too
perfect.
easily. What?
Because, that would be perfect because the woman or man who wrote you the letter in town saying you work for me, John works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the five
So
of us are his boss together as a group. So
Right.
so he does. That's why I was thinking he is pretty good about getting back to me. He follows the rules when it comes to things like that. He does come across as a rule follower, but sometimes the rules can be interpreted. And then, rules about budgets and things like the ARPA money, there are many different ways to interpret how to use that money. And that's,
Yeah.
So I'll
Yeah.
just see if, and I might talk to one of the other board members too, and just see if I try not to bug John about everything because he's busy. So maybe I can ask one of them about the difference between the ARPA and the CARES, and they can just give me the basics.
Yeah.
So I don't ask too many questions.
Mhm.
But yeah, I will go forward with that if you guys want me to, and then I can also, and then you can also work on your, figure out what exactly you need and how you're gonna ask for it and some of your specific needs outside the schools and all the things you talked about tonight would be great.
Out
Yep.
of curiosity, say the CARES funds end soon, because I know I've been looking for it on my phone. I know there was a discussion somewhere else about the expiration date of some of the funds and I cannot find it, but I feel like fall,
Yeah,
like
Okay.
the end
that's what
of
I thought
fall.
too.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious if they're going to expire very shortly or even prior to our next meeting. Is there
Well,
a way to gather and write a letter requesting some of that money prior to?
Well, I think the CARES Act is going to end, but the ARPA funds are going to be longer term.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I
and
could-
one thing John did mention was that he's trying to figure out the best way to use the ARPA money. Like how to do it while following the rules of the ARPA money, but do it in a way that allows us to use it for what our town needs it for. And this
Yeah.
would be need.
Yep.
So
And you know,
I'll see.
both Jason, the finance director, and John, the rules with these funds, it's like they're not implemented across the board the same. And
Yeah.
they're very complicated. Not that that would intrude on us, looking into that, but
But I do want to interject too, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I remember way back when we worked with Jason, who was a finance director then as well. Somebody was trying to give us filled backpacks for us to give to children in need in the town, and he did not allow it because of saying that the town could not accept it. He was reading, I think he was reading a law, reading in between the lines. So I don't know how we get to him, and because I remember at the end we were kind of upset that we couldn't get these for the children, and we even said we could have done a workaround and give it to us, and we could have given it to the kids. So with that, I don't know. I think we have to. I don't know how to get to Jason to say, some accountants are accountants. Some accountants have finance, and finance is more of like, reading through the lines. I don't know how to do that because it sounds like with this last thing you asked, June, Jason was whatever he presented, it didn't get approved. So I guess what I'm saying is, how do we get so that it can be stated in a way that it falls in line with what will be approved?
Yeah, when he first came over from the schools, well, the gentleman before him was anything would go. But Jason really pulled in the reins. And there were some areas that he said we couldn't do through a grant that we could. And so there was a little more flexibility there, but yeah, he might be a little more flexible now.
Okay, good.
And
But
it's
why
hard.
didn't that-
What?
Why did he get approved? Why, when he presented, whatever you presented to go to the CARES fund, why didn't that get approved?
Well, it was at a staff meeting and I had just learned about it. And I brought it up and said how these exciting programs are happening. And so I said, what is the process in Northborough to discuss these? Because other towns already have a process, and this director presented things to the group. I think it was made up of selectmen and town manager, but there was a process in place and there isn't one yet. So, I mean,
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you gave him something and he then presented it to whoever approves the CARES dollars, and it got denied.
yeah, no, I just
okay.
raised the question I had learned from another department. And so I said, what is the process to present for the
Okay.
ARPA? Yeah.
And did he say there was a process or there's not one?
He said that we're in the process of setting up the process, but the priority, and please don't quote me on this, the priority was to pay back the town for the personnel losses or other losses.
Yes,
Yes.
no, okay. Maybe you're
Yeah.
saying that, yeah. Well, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
How we go about doing that, addressing that though.
I think there's some time with that one. So, I mean, unless if we meet with John, we can talk about both.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated if we lost the CARES dollars. Really frustrated.
And it's so funny because, you know, I fight for my department.
Yeah, no.
But what, what happened is I kept hearing about this CARES money and how can we spend it? And the state's telling us one thing. And so I sent an email to John and Jason and Becca, I think. And I said, you know, I've been thinking about these CARES money. And, you know, because I'm very inclusive in terms of decision making. So I said, why don't we send out an email to the staff to generate ideas about how to spend it? Well, Jason sent me back. He's never done this to me. And he said in capital letters, that's not a good idea. So I got the message loud and clear because I think I think he is really trying hard. You know, he's very particular, trying hard to figure out with them what can and can't be paid. It hasn't been easy dealing with the state around this.
Oh, I'm sure it hasn't. I agree with
Yeah. But we don't want to
But,
miss out on this.
that. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I also feel like, June, it might be tricky if we're trying to funnel back into a main pot or pay for. Family and Youth Services seems like it maybe wouldn't be that tricky. Like, I don't know. I just, do you know what I mean? Like, if
Yes,
you're
I
trying
do.
to funnel it in other places that maybe there's a question about, that's one thing. But I feel
Right.
like when you're addressing childhood mental
Yes.
health and people who are about to be homeless or not be able to afford an electric bill, that to me seems like exactly why the CARES Act was created.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
But
I feel
at
like
one
that's a really runaround of a.
Yeah.
Exactly. But at one point, and I think there's history here, the town was going to defund completely Family and Youth
Yes.
Services. It was going to completely just, you know, end the department. And we had to all fight for it to stay
Yes.
alive.
Yeah.
So that is sometimes, you know, that's like starting from zero.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's when I came in and had to readjust what we were doing because there was all these community programs and
When
Yeah.
when was that almost defunded? Do you remember?
It was when Phyllis was fired.
so I think they didn't hire me till like a year and a half later, Joan.
Yes, it was
So
like
it-
almost
it-
20 years ago.
So, yeah.
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 Right.
So I've
it
been
was
here
like-
almost 15.
in-
So,
it was in between your well, they fired Phyllis and Jason. So it was in between, yes, I think you coming on and, you know, wanting to just completely defund the whole
yes.
I believe because of what happened.
Was
you know, the
John
whole-
was John Coder the town administrator at the time or no?
Barry was.
There
Okay.
it was. Yeah.
The guy before him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know,
But
to
a lot of
us, this,
people- The schools, prior clients all spoke out. And Elaine on the
Yeah,
finance. Yes, she played a huge role.
it
Okay.
did.
Good to have people on the finance committee, I suppose, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, this is very helpful. I was running out of steam in terms of writing year after year and not getting anywhere.
I can
So,
imagine
Yeah.
you were.
yeah.
I have
So-
to run and pick up my son at Boy
Yeah.
Scouts. I just noticed the time, but thank you so much for having me, and feel free to email me if anybody forgot anything.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much
Kristen.
for coming.
Appreciate
We
you
really
coming.
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
So that was nice. Our
Yeah, that was
past liaisons, since I've been here, haven't attended,
I
except
think I've seen one, maybe
One.
yeah, that
two,
gentleman, Ken
one meeting.
Hutchins. What? No, Ken.
Yeah. it
No,
was-
John, somebody.
No, it was Hutchins. I remember, yeah, he
What's
came.
his, okay, I thought,
Mhm.
The former police chief's son. He was on the
Yeah,
select.
exactly. Yeah, right.
and his daughter was our liaison.
I was just gonna say that,
Yes.
yeah.
He was
Yeah, and
fantastic.
now she works at, C'est La Vie. Her name is Sarah.
Oh,
Yeah,
what's C'est La Vie?
it's a little French bistro, next to the
Oh.
library.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
she's not? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, good, I'm glad she's back.
yeah, she's there. I think, I don't think she finished college. I know she went off to college, but I got the impression that she went to UMass or something and didn't stay.
Oh.
Anyway,
That's too bad.
So
It's-
sorry to interrupt. So Sandy, I'm just wondering, moving forward, next step, do we sort of look to you for,
I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know.
Okay.
And I'm hesitant to take on that, to drive that.
Okay.
Because I'm stretched pretty thin right now.
Okay.
I'm supportive, I'll participate, but I am a little hesitant to say I'll take charge of this.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So because I guess in terms of thinking about even where the funding comes from, I guess I'm wondering if that just muddies the water with this letter
I
that
think
we're going to
so.
put
I think
together.
it does.
I
think we-
think
Yeah.
if we're clear about this is the position that we're sort of envisioning, these are some of the things that position could generate, and then sort of leave it to the people who decide about where the money comes from to decide where the money comes from. I just think, and
agree.
I think it's in part due to my ignorance of any of these things. So I think, I think that sort of complicates matters for us. I think clearly we have
Yeah.
a select person who hears the message, and I think it's again, that word compelling keeps coming up. I think we know there's a need. Ayako leaving is happy for her, sad for us, but I think
Yeah.
the timing is kind of in some ways really, really great. She's a great, perfect example of someone who was here, did well in the job, but is doing something different because it just was not sustainable. So I think
Right.
all of that is, very persuasive in terms of what the need is. So, I guess maybe a first step is I will look through my stuff. Joan, you're going to look through your stuff, see if you can find this original letter, and then maybe
Yeah.
share it out with everybody if we can put our hands on it or at least get it.
John, can
Can
you
this happen
remind me?
before the next meeting? Because I feel like it's just going to be month after month. Can we do
I think
something?
we, John,
We
can
can't-
you help me with that? I think that there's some rules about we can't
There are.
have,
We can't-
okay, you want to go
right.
ahead with that?
Yeah, we can't meet. That's like kind of meeting in a town capacity without inviting the public. So
Right.
we can't send out group emails to each other because we're leaving out the Northborough populace. So
However, if you go into executive meeting, isn't
Yeah.
that different?
yes, but it's really muddy on how you go into an executive meeting.
What
I
about a
don't know how you-
subcommittee or something that writes the letter? Just two or three
Yeah.
people.
I think the
Right, the
issue
letter.
is that it has to be in a public
Forum.
forum. Oh, and if we don't do it that way, we open ourselves up to some legal,
We do. The law.
yeah.
that's what
and I-
happened. Yeah, when Phyllis was fired, I think the best workaround is to just send something to June. because we're communicating separately to June. If we are going to want to review it as a group, we have to call another meeting
Right,
and we have to announce it to the public. How we call an executive meeting so we could just, pass emails amongst each other, I don't know how to do that. I don't know
I don't
who would
either.
answer that. I guess maybe Diane Wackel might know. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw something in writing about how to do it at a regular meeting because of these virtual meetings. And
Oh.
Jim is the host for this meeting, and he does so many he does like 2 at once. He's fantastic. So I can also ask him. So let me follow up with that.
Oh,
Okay.
that would be perfect, because then we could, legally discuss a letter.
Yeah, I
Out
don't,
of
I don't, I don't,
curiosity, would people? Sorry, go ahead, Gretchen.
no, I just was gonna say, I don't want to get involved in a legal matter
I
because.
don't,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's a proper way to do this. People can go into executive session, but you just have to, I just need to find out the way to do it.
Perfect.
Okay,
On the flip side, what I was going to ask, so that we're not muddying the waters of our letter, but maybe some attention gets towards the fact that youth programming could come from CARES funds. I'm wondering if people are okay with me posting the idea to the public that maybe Northborough should use some of our CARES Act funds towards youth programming and just get a public discussion started to maybe put the idea in other people's heads.
Well, it
That would-
would be the ARPA money.
ARPA money. Okay, so
Yes, use that.
would that be okay? Like, there's a Northborough Women's Government page. There's where I could just be like, I've been thinking about this money. Wouldn't it be great if a chunk of it was used for our youth in town?
Mhm.
I would
And-
have zero objection to that.
Okay.
I think.
I would think that doing that, because I think a lot of people will support that. I think a back end way to go ahead and use the funds needs to be established first. Because what if everybody
It's my
says yes,
take.
and then, first of all, John's going to be, he's going to, I think he needs a heads up, or maybe
Yes.
we don't need some heads up, I don't know. But if everyone says yes, how are we going to do that, June?
No, I'm saying me as a public person. Just post it as a
Yeah.
public person, not a youth commission person. To just generate the conversation in town on some social media pages.
I think that would be good, but I also think could be a lot of heads blown in the town and the town offices.
What do you think will happen, Joan?
Well, I think John could get really, I feel like he's being blindsided.
Well, again, I wouldn't be coming from a commission perspective. There's already talk in town from plenty of people about how CARES Act should be used or how ARPA money would be used. There's already people who are more politically astute have already been paying attention to some of this and chit-chatting about how our town should be using it.
Oh, okay. That might get that will definitely get juices rolling, I think.
Yeah.
But hey, I think it could be good. I think taking supper is sometimes a really good thing.
Well, thank you
But-
all.
yeah, do we want
Okay.
to kind of wrap it up? And I think the plan, June, you're gonna talk to John, and Gretchen and Joan are gonna see what they have in the
Yep.
archives and send it to June, and you can communicate through June. Which does mean, and you're gonna find out about if there's an executive committee option, right, June? Or an executive
Or
meeting,
what we have
whatever you
to
call it.
do to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so small steps, maybe not as moving as quickly as we'd like, but I guess we follow the process and see what the options are.
Yeah, and I think in that too is, I think part of June finance is an executive, way to have an executive committee. I think it was just an FYI that we might be available for a meeting sooner than, next month.
Yep,
Okay.
Okay,
sounds good.
okay. Anything else before we wrap? Would someone like to make a motion to close the meeting?
I will.
Somebody like to second?
I can second.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep,
And,
thank
care.
you.
Thank you.